guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. We've had a beautiful week. We've had a chance to get outside and plant and clean out flower beds. Every day has been beautiful except for today.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but the wind is howling outside and it's shaking the doors in here. And you know the finials on the top of the Hartley? Those are not adhered like you would think that they are.
Yeah.
I remember in the very first months that we had this structure, we were like, what is that? What is moving around? What's banging on the structure?
Right.
And so those run in a track,
Yeah, it's
right?
it's a track, because I remember watching them put them in, and it's just like a little open space, and they start at one end and they just kind of push it all the way through. But yeah, I don't think that they don't drill them in at any point.
Kind of loose.
Yeah. Maybe they should have some kind of a glue or something at the bottom to where they'll
Stay
set,
put.
you know?
I don't know. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear that or not.
Hopefully not.
The sky is blue and the sun has been coming in and out from behind some small clouds out there. So I'm thankful for that. Before we jump into the videos from this past week, a couple of things, store announcements. First off, I just got my hands on this 10 minutes ago. Aaron ran down to the warehouse because they just arrived. But we have a new spring shirt.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Is that you? Is that you watering?
I don't think so. This gal has pretty dark hair, darker than mine.
Yeah.
But maybe it was me when I had darker colored hair.
Well,
I don't know.
there's a dark colored cat and an orange cat.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
Is that Douglas and Russell?
maybe. There's a greenhouse here, a gal watering plants, 2 kitties, potted plants, and it's in a little heart design, which is kind of cute. But the fun part about these is that they are being made in the town that my brother and sister live in.
Yeah.
So, just
printed.
Printed.
Right.
So, what is it, 30 minutes away from us,
Yeah.
25 minutes away from us. So I think that's really quite special. Now, one thing to note, if you are interested in getting this shirt, they do run a tad on the small side. So if you're used to ordering a medium, you might consider a large. Small, maybe consider a medium, that sort of thing. So anyway, I think it's just a really cute design. Ken worked really hard on that. So.
And it's a women's shirt.
It is a women's shirt. Yeah, definitely cut. It's cut for women. So anyway, I love it though. It's tagless and it just says Garden Answer, a logo right there. So fun. Also, our pop-up bags are back in stock. So the hard shell bottom ones that we use out in the garden all the time, and the character watering cans are back in stock as well. I didn't realize that those would be such a hit, but they have been. Babs the pink pig, which I actually love it because you know that she waters out, to her 2 nose holes. But when you're watering a flat of plants that has 2 cans on either side, I just run it down the center and it waters both cans at the same time. I'm like, this is genius. I'm serious.
You knew you just needed Babs.
I know. So there's a pig, a fish, a duck, and then a gnome, I think. So anyway, those are the notes from the store, so gardenanswer.com. We will jump into the first video from this past week, which was how to prune raspberries and then a green stalk unboxing. So I pruned our raspberries, went through how to prune spring or June bearing raspberries versus ever bearing raspberries. And then I got it done, got them fertilized. They look so much better. I'm fixing to get those beds all stained here fairly soon. And then we went into the greenhouse, and that was our treat for the day because it was pretty I warmed up, but there was snow all around and my feet were sopping wet. Sopping wet by the time we were done with that project. But it was nice to go into the greenhouse, and we unboxed just a box we got from Greenstock. I didn't know I knew it was probably a vertical garden, but I didn't know which one they had sent. But it's their new color, lilac. So, hear that? The wind is just crazy. So Pine Haven Homestead said, do you think it would be beneficial to add a layer of compost over the bed at this time after you've cut back and fertilized all the raspberries? Yeah, absolutely. And we might still do that. We'll go in with some land and seed, just soil conditioner, and
it's kind of hard at this point in the season because everything's pretty muddy and soft. So any equipment that you use to bring compost closer, you're kind of just tearing things up. So you kind of have to let things dry out just enough to where you're not tearing things up to bring the compost close.
Although you could do bagged.
You could, but still, even the tracks, just all the walking around with the weight.
Yeah, that's true. Well, with this wind,
it'll dry out
real fast. Jessica said, do you ever propagate the berries from the cuttings you prune off? I have. I've filled in some of our fall gold, more bare areas where they've rooted, grown out from the bed. You can dig those and just pop them right back in the bed. And we've given away hundreds and hundreds of raspberry starts. We've got a couple of people who will come and just dig them. I'll just text them and say, hey, we've got a crop if you want to come in. And they come in, they bring their shovels, buckets, and they dig them out and take them. She's like, great, they get free plants and we don't have to do the work of doing it. And then Bethany, a lot of times when she's out there, she'll wait till they get to a certain size, dig them, and then she'll farm them out to whoever. Michelle said, could the green stalk be outside and use the greenhouse insects to do winter sowing? The green stalk can absolutely be outside. Can you use the greenhouse insects to do winter sowing? I'm not sure I understand that question.
Insects has to be a different word.
The greenhouse, oh, insects.
Insects.
I'm sorry, that was my fault. The greenhouse insects to do winter sowing. Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
It's not totally enclosed. Those covers, like there's air that can get it, but there's air that can get through the hole.
Yeah.
I would think that you would need to make sure that they stayed watered. And I'm not sure that it would work, like the reservoir would work if it's freezing outside. I don't know,
Yeah.
So you might need to individually water the pods at that point, because when it waters, it's a slow drip into each one of the reservoirs, and so it kind of like subs down. And if you're starting seeds, you need to keep that surface level wet. So I think that probably individually watering those would be a good idea anyway.
Yeah, imagine if those holes are so tiny that kind of the drip down. And if water got caught and froze right there, it could be like one of those holes could get frozen shut.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't
Right.
It wouldn't work properly.
Right. Yeah, I would just go ahead and err on the safe side and water them individually. So Seth said, I live just outside Boise. I was told to put a layer of straw on my berries before the snow fell. Is that not necessary? I don't think that it's a bad thing at all, but the last time we used straw, we created a huge thrip problem out in our garden. So, I'm planning for some new strawberry plantings this year because, we tore all of our strawberries out because they were getting older anyway, and they were not quite as productive as they were the first couple of years. So it was good timing, but I'm thinking of putting just a top dress layer of straw underneath the plants so the berries can, rest on the straw. So not a thick layer, but as like a mulch. It's not a bad idea. I don't think it's 100% necessary in our area. I don't typically do that on berries, but it's not wrong to do it if that's what you did. Jan Hastings said, when the bulbs finish, could you put them back in cold storage, chill, and bring them out and have them bloom again? I mean, in essence, yes, but you would need to leave. So I'm thinking you're talking about the bulbs and crates in the greenhouse. You would need to leave the foliage up after you've cut flowers. Leave that foliage up until they've completely browned and died back. Because the bulb, in order to be fed, and so it's charged up and ready to go for the next season, it has to absorb a ton of sunlight, and that sunlight turns into energy, feeds the bulb, so you have to leave those greens up so that it can do that. Once they have yellowed and died back, you could clean them off, and then you could dig them and store them. Now our tulips, I haven't given an update in an actual video. I'm pretty sure we're dealing with tulip fire, which is a fungal issue. Did not notice it at all in our garden out there last year. When they grew and bloomed, they were beautiful. We dug them all, I didn't see anything apparent. And then they started to come up. They looked beautiful. We moved them out to the high tunnel, and it got pretty darn cold. And I thought, oh man, they all got nipped a little bit because they started to look a little bit brown on the tips. But not all the tulips were up at that point. And so we moved them eventually back to the greenhouse where there's heat. Then more of them started to grow, and then more of them started to look that way. And kind of like little brown, twisty spots. And I actually dumped a few crates completely. And usually if I'm gonna get rid of bulbs, we find a new home for them. And I think Paul dumped those for me, and I just told him, just dump them. We need them gone. Nobody needs to have these because it spreads, and there's not a really good way of controlling that. So it doesn't spread to other plants though. Typically it's just a tulip thing. So I do have other tulips in there. I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens. I did get some blooms off of Anatolia. But anyway, the daffodils though are beautiful. The daffodils have been so gorgeous. I've had so many bouquets in the house. I mean, just endless daffodils. I'm loving it. Jennifer said, for the green stock gardens that you use in the greenhouse, do you use the water reservoir or do you hand water? I want to get one for my aunt and want to know what the best way is to keep the plants happy. I use the water reservoir in there. Just fill it up to the fill line, and that's it. It's easy.
What was that?
Word, I don't know. I am so not working outside today. Nope. Okay, Jodine said, thank you for all you share. Would it be okay to use hedge trimmers, or are they too damaging? I took out my hedge trimmers to trim the raspberries back, and then I kind of got into it because I was demonstrating, where to cut, and I was noticing that a lot of the canes were pretty good size. And there was some dead canes in there, which when they are dead, they are a lot more hard. And I don't want to damage my hedge trimmers. I don't want to dull the blades more than I have to, so I just skipped that and just did it by hand, and it went pretty quick. The Jilly said, can I mow both fall bearing and June bearing types, or is mowing only applicable to fall bearing types? It's only applicable to fall bearing types. You would not want to mow down June bearing types. I explained why in the video. So if you go back to that video and just kind of listen to the way that raspberries grow, and June bearing, they bear on second year canes. So if you mow them down and you're mowing down the canes from last year that would produce this year, you will have no berries and you'll have to wait another season to get some. So yeah, you might just watch that part of the video back again to learn a little bit more about like the growth habit or whatever of the raspberries. Megan said, is early spring / late winter a good time to transplant? If so, how far apart do you plant the transplants from runners? Yes, now is a great time. We've been transplanting some things, digging and moving plants around already. And you would want to probably space your canes out like 6 to 8 inches or so is kind of what we thin them out to. I mean, you could start the plants a couple feet apart from each other and they will fill in the area. So do keep that in mind. They'll create runners all around them. So they will eventually fill in even if you put them further apart. Carol said, when you make raspberry jam, can you not mix the golden with the red to get both color and flavor? I suppose you could. So the fall golds are a family favorite raspberry. Like if we could take out the red raspberries, I probably would if I didn't want to make jam, but raspberry jam is Aaron's favorite. So we keep the red because it's a prettier jam and they are tasty, but fall golds, they're so good. And they're kind of like an amber golden orange color when they're on the plant, but you make jam out of them and they look like snot.
You know what? I have the perfect solution. Red dye number 40. Oh. And I hear that it's healthy.
Very. I made some of it. I can't even bring myself to eat it. Aww. Next video is advice on planning for a new garden with Aaron. We sat down in here and we just talked through some of the things we've learned over the last 8 years putting our garden space together, and things we wish we would have done or thought about before, and we thought it might be helpful just to talk about those kinds of things, because learning from somebody else's experience instead of having to go through some of those things yourself can sometimes be nice. Ivy Ben Garden said, Aaron, once the conduit is in the ground and buried, how do you run things like electrical wire, Ethernet, etc. inside the conduit from one end to the other? Also, did you make a drawing / plan of where your conduit is to know the beginning and end locations?
Yeah, you should definitely take pictures when the trench is there. That's probably the best time to take pictures from multiple different angles, so that you can remember exactly where the trench is, so that if you're digging holes later or whatever, definitely take pictures. In terms of getting stuff run through the conduit, so you should have a sweep or an elbow that's like a gentle curve. If you're getting conduit that's meant for electrical stuff, it'll be curved. Don't use water irrigation like a 90-degree,
a sharp 90,
like a sharp 90, because that'll be really difficult to run stuff through. But you can run a tape through, a fish tape, and that's just like a thin, rigid metal tape that you can push all the way through, and then you can hook on the other end when it pops up, and then you can run your stuff through. Or to get a string in there, you can wad up some plastic, like a plastic bag, and tie a string around it, and then use a shop vac to actually push the air, because the plastic will kind of plug up the hole. And if you really almost any amount of pressure over the hole, if you just push air through it, it'll push the plastic bag.
A shop vac pushes air?
Yeah, you can push it all the way to the other side.
Oh, I didn't know there was
you
a
might
setting.
be able to suck it from the other end.
I didn't know you could do that on a shop vac.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Some shop vacs you can take the hose, and because it's just pushing air, it's sucking it on one end and pushing it out the other end. Sometimes you can put the hose on the push end and push air. Oh. But if you need to suck, you can try to suck it from the other end, whatever works.
Sure.
But that's a way to do it too. But we usually use a fish tape.
Yeah.
Because I have one. I don't know why we have one.
Well,
I mean, we use it, but why did we buy it originally?
Probably because we needed it for conduit. Well, I think we showed it when we ran that extension cord into this brick circular area, because year before last, Christmas before last, we had a Christmas tree out there in the center, and we needed a way to get and it's still in there. The extension cord's still in there, so we could still use it if we wanted to. If
you hire an electrician, they have all that stuff. It's nothing to them to run wire through conduit. But if you're doing it yourself, I would just find somebody with a fish tape or
get one.
Buy one, yeah.
A. Ruiz said, I have a question about your conduit. I recall you worrying a little bit about water inside. If you could go back and do it again, would you put a little gravel under the conduit and drill holes so water could drain? Or is that an extra step that wouldn't really pay off?
No, you definitely don't want to do that.
Okay.
Water will get in, but you don't want any holes. I would just like decrease the integrity of the pipe.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with water getting in other than it gets slimy and it smells if you're ever, running something through it.
Right.
But it ultimately, I mean, like I remember when I was working at the cable company, we were running cable through lines, and we were like, this water is probably like 30 years old. Because it's just been sitting down there and has nowhere to go.
Right.
And it was stinky, but it is what it is.
Sure. Dogwood's Flower Farm said, can you please explain in your recap video how to plant your beds after you've planted bulbs that you will not be removing?
You did it wrong.
Yeah, wrong order, and I've done that so many times. Just knowing that I'm going to probably sacrifice a few bulbs in the planting process, but a lot of times when you're planting with an auger, it doesn't ruin the bulbs. It just like grabs them and pops them up out of the soil, and usually I'll put the new plant down in the ground that I'm planting and then just tuck the bulb in along the side and then just bury it back in. And I rarely actually damage a bulb when I'm using an auger, which is quite nice. But it is definitely recommended to do the bulbs as like last step.
Yeah.
For sure. Goes on to say, I've packed a center island with daffs, tulips, and hyacinth. After they have bloomed, is it possible to plant over the top of them? Absolutely. I plant over the top of stuff all the time, like especially in the Persephone garden area. I've got tulips in there, and then we go in with the annuals afterward, and the tulips are back this year. Again, though, if you are digging holes for your annuals, you might, run into a bulb here or there, depending on how close they are and how deep you actually go. But I'm guessing, like, if you've got hyacinths, how deep do you plant hyacinths? Not as deep as tulips and daffs, right? I can't remember, but you might run into some of those more surface level sown bulbs than the ones that are a little bit deeper. Sarah Killingsworth said, Laura, what is your process for using landscape fabric around your hedges? I also have hedging that has been overrun by bindweed, but I'm unsure if I need to level the area, remove the hedging, and put fabric down, then replant, or if I can use landscape fabric around the existing hedging to control the bindweed. If you have nice hedging, I would not sacrifice that. I would try to clear out underneath and then try to cut to fit. Like take your landscape fabric. Let's say your hedge is here. You've got, hedging here. Put your landscape fabric on the ground, and wherever there's a trunk, make just a slit in the fabric, and then another slit and another slit, and then move it all, kind of in around. And then if you can run another piece of landscape fabric over where that slit is on the one side and tack it down so you don't have any openings, that would be perfect. The way we've done it is we did not have hedging there, so it was a lot easier. But you take your roll and just unroll it where you want your hedge to be. You place your plants where you want them to be, and then you remove the plant, cut a little X in the fabric, just as the size of the pot, fold those flaps underneath the soil, dig your hole, get your plant in, and then you unfold those flaps and put them right up to the trunk. So there's not a whole lot that it could still peek its way out, but it's so much less and it's so much easier to control that way. And then once everything's planted and the fabric's back in place, we blow everything off. No soil on top of that landscape fabric before we put whatever it is down on top of a mulch. I think we were using more of a mulch sort of like a barkier thing back in those days when we initially put it over the landscape fabric. Now we use compost, but the bindweed has been smothered. Like, we don't have bindweed issues under those spots where we used to have bindweed issues, so it's great. Okay, Ron Bug said, I'm too lazy to read all the comments, so sorry if already asked. Why wouldn't you do all frost-free water instead of some regular? Well, frost-free water, it's more expensive to run. You have to dig a way deeper trench. So we just figure in the areas that it's important to have it, and then the rest of them can just be surface level. I don't know if any other...
Yeah, was it Frank?
Ron.
You're not wrong, Ron. Having more frost frees is better. Yeah, you're just dealing with like an expense issue, and in some areas, for us, we have to go 4 feet down. I know in other areas, you have to go even farther if you live farther up north.
Yeah.
So, can you imagine digging like an 6 foot trench?
Oh man.
That's down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why.
Victoria said, oh, how I wish I had this information when we first moved into our house. At least I have it moving forward, so thank you. Question, speaking of conduit and things, would you ever consider putting landscape lighting out in the south garden or other areas? Not sure what your thoughts on landscape lighting in general is. I like a little bit of landscape lighting, and you do want that.
I 100% want to do that. And I am pretty confident with the amount of conduit that we've run, because a lot of landscape lighting is just buried, it's called direct bury. And it's low voltage, but it's just right under the surface of like grass or mulch or whatever. It's literally just inches below the surface. And you can repair it if necessary. So if you hit it, it's not a big deal.
Sure.
Like, it's not going to shock you greatly if you hit it. It
Just
might give you a little
bit.
It might give you a little jolt, but it's not.
Not to you. Aaron doesn't feel shocks.
No, I kind of don't.
I do. Electric fence. Oh man, one time when I was little, I was graining the cows in the wintertime. I was feeding them their grain, and we were pretty friendly, the cows and I. And I would like crouch down and put my hand through the fence and pet them. Well, one day I just like leaned too far forward, and the line hit me right across the forehead and just sent me back on. I just fell completely backwards, like stunned. But you would have been like nothing.
Well, I've never really tested the limits of. I mean, it's mostly just like hot wire.
Yeah.
But every time that I've touched it, I mean, I can grab it and I can feel the pulse because it's like somebody kind of like maybe doing this.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Doesn't shock you.
It's not a big deal.
Oh man, lucky.
But anyway, I think I'm pretty confident with all the conduit that we have that running all that landscape lighting would actually not be that hard of a job.
We want to uplight our maple trees along the lane. I think that would be pretty. And then I think I want to selectively choose a few trees.
Okay, so I just want to throw this out there. I got a bid for landscape lighting, and it was $80,000 to do.
And when was that bid?
That was
a while ago.
It was a couple years ago. So that is one of the reasons.
Extra land too.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons that we have not done landscape lighting. Is that to me, I was like, something's wrong. And I know landscape lighting is expensive. I know that a lot of the lights are expensive, but $80,000 to me just sounded crazy. Mm-hmm. And that was a nice system. That was like, that was not your like Hampton whatever that you get at Home Depot stuff.
Hampton Bay
or whatever. So I don't know. I think that's what we need to figure out is just like where do you draw the line of like good quality stuff, but you're not spending $80,000.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I think it would be pretty.
Oh yeah.
To have the maples done and then a few key like foundation plantings around the garden. Like, I don't like it when it's overdone, and I don't want it to be like this beacon on the, over here full of lights, but I think it would be handy because it's pretty dim.
Well, I mean, from a security standpoint and things like that, I think it's good to have lighting. Mm-hmm. Just the more you light, the better. And then it looks good too. Yeah. Obviously.
Joyce has said, do you actually recommend planting garden beds right up to the house? Yep. I just would, kind of be mindful of what you're planting. You wouldn't want to plant a willow tree right next to your house, or anything that's going to have root system that would wreck foundation or that would get into, like, if you've got a septic system or whatever, just be mindful of that sort of thing. But I think most people have flower beds right up to the house. Mm-hmm. I think that would be that's pretty normal thing. Yeah. Otherwise, what would you do right up to your house? Like gravel? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff is, you want to make sure you don't have standing water. So like how you're watering things, you want to make sure that if things are going to your foundation, that you're not like just continually, keeping your foundation wet or something like that. But otherwise, if you have well draining soil, you're good. Yeah.
I'm trying to think
And plants will help with that. If you have standing water, if that's an issue for you, plant it. Especially with something that doesn't have invasive roots that will suck up the water. Yeah. That'll help.
There's a lot of shrubs and perennials that love lots of water that would handle that. But I was trying to think, like there's, I guess the flower beds along the back shade porch and then the west side and then the hydrangeas in front. Everything else is pretty much away because of the concrete sidewalk around our house. Love Soil said, brand of coffee mug. Swig. So Aaron and I went to Boise for his birthday. We stayed the night, and I left my white one at the hotel room. I even did a double take. I walked through to see if I missed anything, and I missed that, which bums me out. And the weird thing is I had bought a second one, and I could have sworn I left it on a gator somewhere. And I can't find that one anywhere.
Maybe the mouse ate it.
I don't know. It's probably somewhere with my rolling pin.
It's the borrowers.
Yes. And so I got online and I ordered 2 more white ones, but they couldn't be delivered till the end of March. So they had this pink one that could get to me the next day. And I thought, well, that's a pretty spring color. I'm going to get the pink one. Ode to Super Junior Vista Bubblegum. Yeah. It's right here. But I love it. Keeps my stuff hot all day long. Ashley Miller said, building a raised garden bed area from scratch this spring. I know I want them elevated, but unsure of how high. You've also commented on the mitered edges of your beds failing or falling apart. So if you could change how you built the beds, what would be your opinion of a perfect raised garden bed? Type or size of wood? What things have you loved about your raised beds? I know you've said you loved having an individual water shut off to each bed. Yeah, so the individual water shut off to each bed has been so nice in our raised bed garden area because, you know, we've got different crops going all the time. And sometimes we don't have a crop, like we'll harvest garlic on July 4th. Well, it's not really a great time when it is the dog days and super hot to put a new crop in. I mean, you could put beans in or some kind of warm season crops so that you don't have any time where the bed's laying empty. But if you should have the bed laying empty for a few weeks, it's nice to be able to turn the water off so you're not wasting that water. I love the look of our beds. They're 2x12s is what we use, and we used redwood. I think redwood's actually more expensive than cedar at the moment.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't say I think. I know. We are currently in the process of having some beds built for strawberries. So we're looking at different options and different styles, and we're going to build some tall ones for the strawberries. And that's one thing. Like, I wouldn't take back the size that we have our beds in there because I think it's beautiful and it just looks scaled right for that area. But as you get older, taller beds are nice, and I want a bed so tall that I don't have to hunch or bend at all, because when you're dealing with crops this tall, like you want them like right here at counter height. But if you want to grow things like corn and tomatoes and things that grow a little bit taller, having shorter beds is kind of necessary because you wouldn't want something, you know, growing really tall. So you just have to think about what kind of things you want to grow and what kind of quantity and what height would be the most comfortable for you. I would not miter edges. I would put them together like this, like normal. We did put L brackets, the metal L brackets inside each one of the beds, so they're not going to fall apart, but the mitered edges are so thin that they get wet and then they kind of like warp out, and it looks like the beds are going to fall apart when they're not actually. Any other thoughts about that?
What are your thoughts on using other materials besides wood?
Oh, I think it's totally fine.
You're not like a huge fan visually of those metal raised beds,
Yeah,
but
I don't
they're
like-
kind of everywhere.
Yeah, I know. I don't really love that style.
It'll be a fad. It'll be like like in the 80s, remember when everybody was using like railroad ties?
Yes.
Like everybody's garden across America, like well, if you need something like that, railroad ties.
Right. That's
They're
the
in
answer.
abundance.
Yeah. I just like the softer, more natural look of wood. And that's completely personal opinion. I don't think that the metal raised beds, like in a different environment, look bad. And in fact, you know, they can be incorporated beautifully into a garden space. But it's just not a personal, if I do use metal, it's like the galvanized tubs because it looks more farm.
Oh, sure.
And I like that look. But I just don't like the corrugated looking beds that much. I don't know why. It's personal. It's a personal preference. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with those though, at all. Karen said, "Love your property. A bit off topic, but what can you do with your old potting mix? Can you only bin it? It depends. I would bin or trash soil that you've had spider mite issues in. Any kind of bug or fungal issue, just toss that soil away so you're not, you know, possibly spreading it to another area of your garden. But if we have containers that we're cleaning out that have been completely fine, plants have been healthy, we spread that soil out in different parts of the garden. So we'll just take the pot out like to the dirt lands and tip it over, dump out the soil and just kind of spread it out.
Don't you think though that if you've got old soil, as long as it's not like super compact, that really if you just fertilize, you're probably going to be fine with it.
If you really fertilize, yeah.
Yeah, that's what
and
I mean.
it's not
though.
taxed with roots too much.
That's what I mean. If it's compact, like if it's just a root ball, then you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah, you want fluffy soil for your plant's roots.
But if your soil is old, you know, but it's still you can still work it. I feel like if you just like top dress with compost or something good
Mix
and then
that
fertilize it, I feel like you'll be totally fine.
Maybe we should do some experimentation.
Maybe we should.
Yeah. Okay, next video is pruning grapes and pruning/spraying fruit trees. So we had to go out and see my shame, my own personal shame of grape vines that I completely neglected to prune the very first year they were in, and that's so important. If you're going for a specific shape, definitely prune them and prune them hard along the way, because then if you don't, they'll turn out looking like mine, which they are unique. They have some character for sure. But I think we took them from what the mess that they were to something that's workable. They'll fill up more of the trellising thing that we built right there. It's perfect. But I did go through grape pruning and, you know, where they bear their grapes and what you're looking for and that sort of thing. And when we were done with that, we headed out to the orchard and we did light pruning. Trees didn't need a whole lot because I did heavy pruning last year. So all I really focused on was any interior growth that was kind of clogging up the center. You want to keep that stuff out and keep, you know, airflow at maximum and that sort of thing. And then we mixed up some liquid copper and a horticultural dormant oil spray, and we got everything sprayed, minus the 2 apples on the arch, which thank you guys for reminding me. I totally didn't think about it, and I probably wouldn't have if you wouldn't have reminded me. I'm so thankful for you guys. You got my back. So that was actually on my list to do today, which I think I'll probably pop it onto tomorrow's list because it's so dang windy out. But I'll get those sprayed. We're actually going to move. We're going to move those trees and the whole pathway, like a foot,
Yeah.
maybe. Okay, that's a different issue for a different day. But Jermaine said, how come you don't spray the raspberries and grapes? They typically don't need it. They are not afflicted by the same things that fruit trees are, so we usually don't have to treat them with anything.
Are they in other areas? Are we just lucky here?
Oh, I don't know. I do get asked about raspberry cane borers every once in a while, and I've never suffered or had mine suffer from that. Grapes, leaf miners, maybe, but that's a different type of thing that you would spray for. So, yeah, I guess we're maybe lucky in this area. Jeannie said, for the size of the grape plants, what do you recall? How much yield did you get? Oh my gosh.
Too much?
I got and there's tiny, I mean, you guys saw how much I trimmed them and how tiny they were the first year. And I think that they actually had more fruit that first year than they did after I pruned them so hard last year, because I did such a massive training prune on them that I cut off a lot of canes that would have produced fruit, and I knew that. But I mean, baskets and baskets and baskets full, and I have so much. I still have juice. Like,
well, don't you think you're not really supposed to get fruit the first few years? The first couple years are training years, wouldn't you say?
Maybe so. Maybe like a little bit, but you don't expect maximum big yields until you've got them like kind of trained and in place, possibly. And which is kind of what we're doing. I did trim off a lot of canes this year too, but there's more canes left this year than were left last year. But they are so good, you guys. Gardening Newbie said, can you use the same sprays on maple trees? You'd have to read the labels. I don't know what you're spraying your maples for, but I know both of those can be sprayed in season on specific things for specific reasons. So I would do some research on that first. I'd have to look at the label as well. Stacy said, what's the difference between dormant and dead trees? How can you tell? Well, the dormant trees are just sleeping for winter, and dead trees are ones that won't come back in the spring. But you can tell when you look at the state of the wood on the tree. If a tree is dead, unless it's a specific kind of tree, there's some that look more like corky they have peely bark, and that's just their nature, and they're still alive even if they don't look it. But most of the time, the dead branches will look a lot lighter in color. They will look more puckered. You can also take your fingernail, do a fingernail test, and just scrape the top layer of bark off. If you see a green layer right beneath it, there's still life in that plant. If it's completely brown, it's probably dead. So it takes, I guess, a little bit just to kind of distinguish depending on what kind of plant you have. And so in that case, I would wait. I would wait until the growing season is well and truly upon us and things are leafing out, and then you can tell for sure what's dead. Will you try making wine in a video for us? Probably not. I am not a wine fan. I never really have been. I've tried to like wine. I just don't love it, so I probably would not ever use my grapes for something like that. I like grape juice. Julia said, at 1518, just a thought, why don't you grow the Paris Valier on the back of the flower shed? We definitely could. We've thought about that. That was one option. That's so hot. That's such a hot area. It won't be, though, because the nectarine will grow and kind of shade it, I think.
I don't know.
That would be
maybe.
That would be a good spot for it, though.
I don't know if there's going to be enough space between the nectarine and the...
Oh, I think there would be, because the espalier is going to take up this much space.
Yeah, that's true.
The other spot where we were going to put it last year is up against the orchard fence on the east side. So it'd get east sun in the morning, and then it'd be a little bit protected in the afternoon. We could put it on the other side. We got water and all that stuff, infrastructure right there, so that wouldn't work. Flower Fangirl said, the grapes of wrath. Question, would you need to spray crab apples if you use the fruit from them for pickling? I don't think so. We don't have to spray our crab apples for anything. I don't have like crab apples that get big crab apples on them though, and I don't know if they get as wormy as some of your standard apples do. I suppose they would, in which case it might be a good idea to do that. but I've never done that before, so I would probably look that one up. So full of information today. Kayla said, do you ever make wreaths or baskets from the grapevines? That's something I would love to learn. I have made wreaths. I can't recall if I've made a basket out of grapevines, but I've made lots of wreaths out of grapevines and out of wisteria vines, but I am currently flush with wreath forms at the moment, so I just didn't worry about it this time. Mark and Kara said, I'm just wondering about the grape trees and the apple arbor. So the grape trees, I showed you at the end of the video because we were spraying the dwarf fruit trees in the high tunnel. I'm not going to do any pruning on those because I was keeping them pretty pruned last year and they're looking really good. And then the apple arbor, yes, thank you for the reminder. That is on my list. Quinn said, when using hose end sprayer, is the sequence of spraying with copper fungicide and horticultural oil important? Also, can I spray with both concentrates same day, or is there a wait time component after using the hose end sprayer with the first concentrate? I don't think it matters what order, and you can spray both on the same day. Absolutely. Okay, next video was a work day at the garden center, setting up fountain statues and pottery. That was fun. They just received a couple of huge loads of pottery that we had previously gone down and did a cursory look at, and I went down for a day just to help put out whatever I could. Emily said, do you know how the roses get their names? Also, do you have a plant or flower named after you? I do not. I think a lot of plant names, I don't know. I mean, after famous people or people who have made a huge influence in the horticultural or gardening industry. People name things after their kids. It could be anything. I don't know. And I don't know who sits around and like names up all the proven winner stuff. They come up with some funny stuff sometimes. Yeah, so I don't know if it's like a room of people sitting there like, all right, what are we going to name this new one? Right. You know, I don't really know how it works. HM said, does the garden center ever repeat pieces like fountains or statuary from one year to the next? Yes, because there are some like bestsellers out there that no matter how many they bring in, they will always sell out of. And so every year I'm like, Mom, you need to order like 10 Galloway urns, like at least 10 or 15. You will sell all of them. But I think they got in like 4 or 5. And I think all of them are sold now.
Wow.
That they're all gone. And they've been up for like a couple of days. It's crazy. JC Wax said, Laura, can you ask your mom what the brand is of her heated gloves? I need those here in Montana. I can ask her. Can you tell me the brand of your heated gloves? ? Someone is asking after seeing them in the garden center workday video. She said that she thinks they are called Warm Feel heated gloves. There you go. Beth said, Laura, does Joe work with your parents at Andrews? Not really. He will go in every once in a while and help with some inventory stuff or some online stuff, but not as much as he used to. He is a college professor, so he is pretty busy a lot of the time. Humble and Kind said, I know you have probably asked this question. Can we order planters, bird baths, and arbors online? That's just a few items I was looking at. Not from my parents' garden center. They have tried to ship some concrete items, and it's just been kind of a nightmare. So they don't. They'll try to, if they're not too heavy or too awkward or big, they will try their best. So if you ever see something that you're interested in that I've showed in a video, you just call them or email down there, and they'll give you their answer depending on how they feel it will be to ship. Yeah. Marcy said, hi, question, how do your parents keep the gravel at the garden center weed free? Do they spray? They do not spray. It's all hand weeded. One difference about my parents' garden center versus a lot of other ones, even in our own area, is that they individually water cans. We do no sprinkler irrigation. A lot of nurseries do that. It makes the plants look horrible. People with hard water should not water plants that way. So they individually, like, it goes under the plant foliage. It's like a thing. And I do it for here too. I remember telling everybody who's worked here, I'm like, you never overhead water a plant, not ever, 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 unless it's impossible to get into the can. You stick that hose underneath the foliage and get it to the soil, so that we're not getting hard water buildup on our plants. And it makes the plants look better. It also is a more efficient way to water by far, and it doesn't water as much of the ground, so you're not going to get as much weed growth. I think that's very, very helpful. Yeah. But they still grow, but there's a crew of people just constantly working on it all the time, and they keep on it really, really well. They do a great job. Rayo said, something I've always been curious about family-owned garden centers is, what do your parents do with all the fountains, pots, plants that don't sell? Do they save the non-living stuff for next year? How do they know they're not ordering too much or not enough? Can you talk a little bit about that process? I think it's a many, many year learning process for sure. Kind of watching what people are doing and how economy is going too. There are some years where the fluff stuff, the beautiful fountains and statuary sell really well. And then there's years where maybe like more recession years, people are focused more on the nuts and bolts of gardening and growing more food themselves. And so that stuff kind of like...
They're buying fruit trees and seeds and stuff like that.
Yeah, strawberry plants and things like that. So kind of watching those things and feeling it out.
I was thinking about that this year. Can you imagine how many chickens are probably being sold?
Oh, man.
Like
so
all
many.
of them.
Yeah.
Every single chicken is sold right now.
Right. Well, I ordered 5 new ones for
I know,
our
that's
coop.
what I mean,
yeah.
though. Everybody's like, man, egg prices, I'm buying a chicken.
Yeah. Fortunately, Samantha has taken it upon herself to do egg collection multiple times a day. We're currently getting 2 eggs a day, which, hey, it's helpful. We've got 3 chickens, so one of them in there is loafing.
Yeah.
Big time. They are getting a little bit older, and I thought, you know what? We have a big enough coop to handle way more than even 8 chickens, but let's get 5 more in there. And I got all buff Orpingtons because they're so sweet and friendly. They're like Bev. Yeah, I'm excited for them. And my mom, I actually put her order in with mine, and so we're going to go, it's a local hatchery, we're going to go pick them up in April.
Nice.
So looking forward to that.
The nice thing about a fountain and concrete and stuff like that is that you can keep that from year to year, and you can literally have a fountain for 4 or 5 years, sitting there waiting for the right person to come along.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's going to look the same
Sure.
essentially in 5 years.
It's also very helpful that my parents' garden center is open year round, and they have a big booming Christmas time like garden center sort of situation and houseplants and things during the winter. So a lot of the pieces that are left over outside get moved inside, and they're redisplayed inside and used that way. Any extra plant material that's left over is put in like cold storage kind of a situation. Everything's just lined up. And this year they had hardly any stuff. I mean, they had some things. We went and bought a bamboo at one point during the winter. I was thankful they had that. And so they had just a smattering of things, but not a lot.
You probably make a deal on something. Like if you've seen something that's been at any store really for like 3 or 4 years, I'm pretty sure if you go in and say, hey, I'll give you something for it,
Yeah.
they'll take it.
I used to do that.
Really?
I can't do that anymore. No.
Well, I remember one time, didn't we go to a furniture place? We offered cash for something, and they actually gave us a discount.
It was just showroom. I think they were doing showroom model sales or something. We bought our dining table and chairs, and it was in the showroom.
But we said like, look, we'll give you cash if you give us a certain discount, and he was like, okay. And we both looked at each other like,
holy moly, it worked.
It worked.
Well, you never know until you ask, right?
Right, yeah.
Betty said, good morning from Kentucky. Is that a new Andrews sign? I just love your mom and dad's place. That one in the very front, it's purple, and it says Andrews Seed Nursery Entrance. That's been there for, I don't show it that often, so it probably looks new, but it's been there for a number of years now. And it's handy because a lot of people didn't really understand how to get to the nursery, especially when this side room and the store used to be offices, which I truly miss them being offices, like big time. But it makes sense because now they've got more storeroom, and then you can go from the store into the nursery without going out along the sidewalk and down the road to go into the nursery. It has helped facilitate a lot of traffic that way, but I miss it because I remember being able to just drive by the front windows and my dad was sitting there at his office desk. And like, I could just count on him being there and seeing that. And then, I don't know, it just had that old business feel, and I still miss it. I'm not the best with change.
No, you're not.
I don't like that. Mendy said, what kind of vine is that running down the side of the wall at the garden center? You really want to know? It's Virginia creeper. Which is not invasive in our area, so we can grow it, and it does not take over. It's a beautiful vine.
It probably just grows from watering the plants. Like
It doesn't have its own. It's not irrigated. Yeah. And it just, in fact, Lupe was out there kind of trimming it up the other day, and they just have it kind of like trained along the like where the gutters would be sort of situation. And it just kind of hangs down beautifully. It creates the most beautiful wall. The Giddy Geranium said, question, you and your mom have mentioned and showed bare root roses soaking in a highly nutritious tea. Any chance you can share how to do that? It's just water with root stimulator, which is like a vitamin B complex, I think. It's been a long time since I've actually used root stimulator, but they use it for that, and it just helps like amp up the roots and get them going. And you guys, after that day, so you remember I bought one of the beautiful little vases from Unique Stone, and my mom was saying how she wanted to use some at her house too, so I don't want to take more than my share. So I just said, nope, one is great. I don't need more than that. Usually I buy at least doubles of everything. And so I was super happy with that. And then the next day my mom said, hey, your dad and I are down at the nursery. I'm going to run up real quick. She does that a lot because she wants to say hi to the kids. And she showed up with another one of those vases and 3 potted David Austin Evelyn roses as a thank you. Because when I go down there and work, you guys, they're not paying me because I'm working. I'm filming videos, and that's my job. That's what I'm doing, and I don't expect them to pay me for being down there. So anyway, that was really sweet. She did not have to do that, but it was such a really nice surprise. And now I've got 3 Evelyn roses sitting in the high tunnel waiting to be planted. That's like a childhood rose for me because it's been one of my mom's favorites forever. And there's probably roses that I like more than the Evelyn rose, but that one holds something for me because it just goes way back to, Okay, next video is donating a succulent arrangement, spring container planting, pruning roses, and hydrangeas. That was kind of a random mishmash of things that I needed to do. So we started off making the succulent arrangement for the annual it was a volunteer firefighters ball, fireman's ball. And they do an auction there. And then when we were done with that, we planted the 4 containers on the corners of the Hartley and the 2 urns in front, which are currently covered in frost cloth because I knew it was going to be super windy and I didn't want those poor little plants to be beat up today. And then we pruned just one little flower bed section, pruned 3 roses and 1 hydrangea tree. I like that, like just going out and doing like a few little things. Nancy said, what are you going to use the updated barn section for? It looks nice. So fun to see the pretty spring color. I'm not sure we've actually mentioned it.
No, and it's not that exciting. Maybe that's why we haven't.
Maybe not. It's a change that, and we knew you guys would be seeing like contractors' trucks here and like work being done, and we needed to clean it out.
Yeah.
Too. It needed to be cleaned out really badly. But they're almost done, I think.
Yeah.
And you guys, it's going to be used, it's kind of multi-purpose, but it's going to be mostly a gym. So we're going to...
And storage.
Yeah, we're going to put a TV up on one of the walls, and we've got gym equipment that I use it quite a lot, but it's down in our basement, and and it's like musty and kind of small down in there.
It's really small.
Yeah, I don't mind it, but it's going to be nice. There's a system that you want to get weights, something like that. So we're just going to set it up kind of as an area that's got more room for things like that. And then there's a little cubby underneath the door that's going to be conditioned space as well, and that's going to be used for our liquid garden things, so fungicides, herbicides, insecticides, because they're not supposed to freeze. In fact, we went through a bunch of our stuff this year, and when they freeze, a lot of times they separate. Whatever's in there, it separates, and then you lose so much, like the efficacy of these products goes either like it doesn't work or it goes down a tremendous amount. So we disposed of quite a number of things. That's so wasteful. It feels so... just to eliminate the need to pack up everything and move it into our basement and store them in our house, it'll be nice to have a little cubby where those things can go, and then just shut the door and that's where they are. And then whatever else storage that we need to use it for.
Yeah.
So we've just enjoyed that studio space so much, and we just had the contractor look at it and we just said, just do whatever was done in this one, just repeat it in this one. So we're getting close to being done with it. And we'll show you when it's all done and set up. It won't be like super exciting. Maybe we didn't talk about it because it's not really garden related,
right? Other
than the fact that we had to clean it out and it was full of garden stuff. Diane said, have you tried to propagate your own roses? No, not really. I don't know, just being down at the garden center so much and being raised in that, there's always roses to be had down there. I've worked a lot of overtime hours to buy roses. A lot of IOUs for sure. Alay said, inspiration, beautiful day, music, kitty, loves, etc. Thank you for the barn update. Can't wait to see the organization system you put in there. Is there a particular brand or are you able to share? Oh, so I don't know if there's going to be an actual organizational system in there, but we are going to continue going through the loft, and we'll show you once everything's done because we are waiting until they're completely done. I've got a ton of canning supplies, like of all places to keep your jars and stuff up in the loft, like super dirty and gross up there and so far away from the kitchen. So we're going to do a whole shift, and all of the kitchen related or home related items that are not like Christmas or holiday stuff, they're going to come down and be organized on shelving units in the basement. And then anything else, I mean, will stay up there and we'll have more room for it. So I don't know, I think overall it's going to be such a positive change for everything. Lisa said, I'm wondering how you keep the cold from coming in through the garage doors in the barn.
They have seals just like anything else. I think you can call like a local company that does garage doors, like Overhead Door, and ask them to seal it, and they'll do it.
Yeah.
You can also get garage doors that are specifically made to be better insulated. That's a thing.
Yeah. Chris said, I live with clay soil. Would roses benefit by growing in a pot? I would think you could grow them in a pot, but you can still grow them in clay. I would just amend it, add some good organic matter in there. I mean, if you can get yourself a bag of land and see, work that whole bag into the area around it, I think that's really nice. Now, our last garden, our townhouse garden, super heavy clay soil. And my roses, everything grew really well down there. But we heavily amended, and I added a lot of gypsum into the soil. And gypsum is one of those things that you have to keep adding. It's not something you can quit doing. So if you just have it on your schedule to spread out, like pelletized gypsum is the easiest. Put it in a broadcast spreader and just spread it around your garden. Or go around with a little cup and then work some around into the soil around your plants. That really helps break down soil and helps it be a little bit more lofty. But I think if you do that, you would be fine.
You can't overdo gypsum.
No. Lisa said the succulent planter turned out gorgeous. Question, are you planning to show some footage of the auction like you did last time? No, I think it went into a silent, there was like a live auction that they do there, and then there's like an online auction, which I don't know that they're going to do again next year because the online auction never performs as well. Because, you know, when you're in there and you're like bidding with other people, it's like more fun. Mm-hmm. And I think things fetch a way higher price. So I think mine went into the online auction, so it didn't make as much, I think, as it would have made anyway, so there's no footage of it. Mary Ellen said, don't very often see you with gloves on while you work. Was the ground cold? No, I'm just trying to be a little bit better to my hands, to be quite honest. And they're not great, but every single spring I suffer from the worst splits, and it's usually during seed starting season where I'm mixing the soil. So I actually bought some like black surgical gloves that I thought, well, next time I mix soil, I'm gonna just put those on just for that part, just to like eliminate here and there every once in a while getting my hands all up in the wet soil, and then maybe I won't have those splits like I do going forward because they're not comfortable. They hurt.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just trying to take a little bit better care. Marlene said, is there a reason that you've suddenly stopped posting Garden Answer daily vlogs on Twitter, now X? I don't even know about that.
We just didn't really get much of a response from it. And it, you know, it takes me like, it just takes time to do it. Yeah. I don't think there's a huge gardening, there might be a gardening community on Twitter, or X, but I don't think that they really resonate with our content, or at least, it's just one of those things. Sure. And we also don't make any money from it, so it's just one of those things that you spend time doing to upload it to there. You know, you get maybe like 1,000 views or 2,000 views, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So, and you're not really on it.
I'm not on it at all.
Yeah.
I don't even think I have the app on my phone.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I do, but does it need an update? Yeah. Gardening Newbie said, this question might be for Erin. We live in the woods zone 6B with pine trees surrounding us and have very high acidic soil. We have a maple tree that was planted in our yard by the previous owners 20 years later. It's still the same size. Is there anything that we can do to plant more maple trees that will help them grow as well as the current one that is stunted?
Whoa.
P.S. High five, Erin. You are correct. No one likes the runs. Nice.
Well, that's just
these are
true statement.
I just jumped right into the recap questions from last week. Sorry, that's from the recap last week. So we have a maple tree that was planted in our yard by the previous owners. 20 years later, it's still the same size. Is there anything that we can do to plant more maple trees that will help them grow as well as the current one that is stunted?
You know, I wonder if maybe that one was planted like too deep, or maybe the roots weren't able to get out. I mean, without knowing like the actual circumstances, it's kind of impossible to say. But I would just try again with another maple tree and give it a shot.
I think that maples largely want slightly more acidic soil than higher pH soil. So I'd say on that spectrum, you're probably like, that's good.
Yeah.
So it's probably something else.
Just make sure they have good soil to grow in.
Lots of sun.
It sounds to me like maybe, isn't that what trees do when they get planted too deep?
Well, it could be a variety too.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
There's a lot of trees that stay a lot smaller. That, you know, some maples will get really big, and unless you know the specific variety, I wonder if it's a maple that just stays small.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Maybe. H.N. Harden said, what are white tops? You mentioned when talking about goats and pigs. White top is a super noxious weed that is incredibly hard to get control of. In fact, if you have an issue with white top, you can call, I can't remember who you call, but there's an outfit that will actually come and spray it for you.
Yeah, but everybody has an issue with white top. If you just drive around at the time that it blooms in our season.
It's everywhere. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And nothing eats it except for in Bethany's she's pretty vast knowledge of what animals will eat and what they won't, because she keeps just about every kind of animal. But she said the goats will kind of nibble on it. Maybe if they're more hungry, they'd eat more of it, but pigs will take it out.
Yeah.
So that we were talking about getting some goats for the hillside, and I don't know if it's something, maybe we will.
Yeah.
I don't know, but if they're not going to take care of the white top, like that would be a huge motivator for me. So maybe we get a couple pigs.
Maybe we get some pigs.
And put them on the hillside. They are harder, or easier rather, to contain than goats too.
Yeah.
So that might be a thing. Mary said, for those who want organic only, blood meal helps lower pH. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Interesting. Could you use composting toilets at the edges of your property? More work, of course, but convenient. Composting toilets, I know nothing of. Like,
I just imagine if like something went wrong with a composting toilet, like the thought of having to work on that or do anything related to that is like totally not worth it to just go back to the house.
Yeah. What if you just were like composting toilets for number ones only?
Well, here's the, I guess as a man, it's different because like going number one outside.
Do you want to tell everybody what you have outside?
No. Well, that's the thing is that like for men, going number one outside is just not like if you're in a rural area where there's not people around, you know, it's like you can just go like behind a tree and it's not a big deal, right? So for me, thinking about a composting toilet, you're only referring to number twos. And then I don't know, I guess like I just can't imagine a situation where like you can't make it back to the house to do a number two.
I can't believe we're even talking about that right now.
Can you though? Like if you need to do a number two, just like get on the gator, go back. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's
I wouldn't
crazy
mind,
even think.
I wouldn't mind a composting toilet sort of situation for number ones in the greenhouse and behind the flower shed, or in the flower shed, or behind the flower shed. That would be nice for me because I can't just go outside and go.
Yeah, you just need like a little hole. I mean, you just need it to go into the ground.
Well, I suppose, but I'm not. Yeah, but I can't. I guess unless there's a hut built around it. But I'm talking like, what if I just had like a bucket with one of those seats on it with bags?
But then you got to deal with the bag.
Well, who cares? The bag is not a big deal.
Is that worth it to deal with those bags versus going into the house?
Sometimes.
Oh.
Because I am the type who will hold it. And I will hold it all day long until it becomes like, if anybody gets in my way, we're going to have a situation.
The whole conversation to me sounds absurd on its face because like if we owned a property that was say like 10 minutes down the road or 20 minutes down the road, then I'd be like, okay, that makes sense because you know, that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
You need to go to the bathroom and you're 20 minutes away from your bathroom.
Uh-huh.
I get it.
It would be different too if we had staff that we didn't like want in our home, but we don't have that kind of situation. I mean, the staff that we have here, Paul and Bethany, and they spent 3 weeks in our bedroom putting up molding and painting, and they're free to come in and out of our house as they need to, and they do projects in there too.
Sure.
And I have not a second thought about letting them do that. If it was a different employee situation, we'd probably be looking into it, something at least for the barn area. But that's just not a factor, thank the Lord.
Well, we've talked about putting in another bathroom that can be accessed from the back kitchen porch. Or porch door. And I still think that's a good idea to do eventually.
I do too. I mean, for their privacy too.
Well, for them, but also for contractors that come through.
Sure.
Just like providing a bathroom for people, because that way they're not like getting it. They don't have access to the whole house.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Katrina said, great video, guys. Thank you. You say you are selling the green stalks, but I never see them on your website. Is that because I'm in the UK? I love the purple one and the leafy lid. Tried the main web. Yeah.
Probably is.
Yeah.
Some things can't be shipped internationally.
Gotcha. Sherry said, I keep meaning to ask you how your memory is doing. Did the tincture you made work? I used all of the tincture, and I haven't made more. I don't know. I think maybe it's one of those things that you have to use like consistently and for a long time. Or maybe if you had like a true problem, you could see more of a marked difference. But so far, knock on wood, my table's stone. Anyway.
Does it matter that much?
No, probably not. So far, I don't think I really need a ton of help with my memory. Some of the things I don't remember, I'm glad I don't remember.
You're really good with remembering plant names and things like that. I have a way worse memory than you.
Asking me to recall things with people is a completely different thing. Your mom has it on lock. Like she knows like different stages and when everybody did this and like all the years and all of the, it's just like astounding to me.
Yeah.
She's just like so sharp about that. And I am not. Like, how old were our kids when they got their first tooth? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, and those things, it doesn't matter to me. Those little details just do not matter. And a lot of that just goes out. It's probably so I have more room for plant names.
Yeah.
I guess. Jennifer said, I've been seeing a lot of really unique seeds and plants sold on Etsy. I ordered a begonia that the leaves look like butterflies and a rising sun redbud that has green to yellow to orange leaves on the same branch. Do you ever order anything unique from Etsy? I would love to see some of these varieties tested out. Now, the rising sun redbud, that is true. Beautiful. That's like an ombre kind of look. A lot of the random, like kind of too good to be true colors of plants or shapes and things like that are not true. So I would be pretty careful. I don't order things from Etsy typically. My mom has ordered me some seeds through Etsy. I actually ordered hot chocolate pumpkin seeds on Etsy once. It's the only place I could find them. And they came up beautiful and they were hot chocolate pumpkins. So that was a good experience.
I've ordered some stuff on Etsy before that were more like tech related, but like little 3D printed gadgets that like hold like SD cards and things like that. You can find some really cool stuff.
Yeah. I just don't spend a whole lot of time like shopping at all online. I mean, I'll get on and order something if I know I need it.
Sure.
Leapy Louie said, when do you prune your maple trees? We're in zone 6A in Michigan. I was thinking early spring, but my husband is worried about the maple sap. We had ours pruned
when they took the tree out.
Yeah.
Because they were here and we were talking about the trees and I was like, can you do it today? He was like, sure.
It was cold.
Yeah.
It was still like, definitely winter. And you can lightly prune once the trees woke up, but I probably wouldn't do any heavy pruning on them.
No.
I would do it when they're good and dormant still. So you might still be okay. I mean, if you're in Michigan at this point of the year, they haven't broke dormancy here yet, you might be fine. Zachary said, what reference did you use to quickly find what soil plants prefer? I'm checking Proven Winter's website and I did see it as a filter option. Thanks in advance. Soil plants prefer. What was I
looking for? I think this person is asking like, how do you find a list of plants that prefer a certain type of soil? But most often it's the other way, where you're finding plants that you like and then finding out if they prefer the soil that you like.
Yeah. Which
is time consuming because it's a 1-by-1. You have to check each plant. But you kind of have to do that because if you go for those lists, they're going to be pretty generic and probably are not going to show you specific varieties and things like that. And we've found that where, certain maples do better. So it's hard to say like all maples like acidic soil or whatever, because there's some varieties that seem to do better in different types of soils.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to look that up on an individual basis.
Right. And it's nice, like the Proven Winners website is nice because it does list, like toward the bottom of all the plant information, it says what kind of soil they prefer. If it's average or poor soil, some plants prefer poor soil. If they like more alkaline, more acidic, it'll say. Debbie said, you showed dahlia tubers in plastic bags. Can you tell us more about that? Yeah, I showed dahlia tubers in a video sort of recently where we were in the root cellar and I stored all of mine in cellophane this last year. And so I divided them in the fall, and we didn't save all that many. I can't remember how many I dug. I went through and just handpicked the ones that I really liked, and we just left everything else out there. So yeah, divided them, cleaned them, divided them, and then wrapped them in cellophane. And when we did check them, which was the first time I checked them all winter, they were looking great. So I don't know if all of them look the same as the ones that I was seeing there at the top, but yeah, so far so good with that method, and it wasn't using any vermiculite, and we don't have to do the cleaning and dividing now in the spring, which is so nice. That used to take so much time. I hated that process because I wanted to be doing other things than standing there dividing dahlia tubers. And you guys, that is it for today's recap video. I didn't even realize we were toward the end of our question list.
I really hope that this whole video wasn't ruined by that sound.
It's just miserable out there. I guess maybe it makes me feel anxious because I can see everything. Yeah, it's a fishbowl. I can see everything blowing around. So thankful our tree roses are tied up. The wind. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a great start to your week, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.